Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who took an unconventional road into mortgage, starting out as a freelance writer, penning realtor bios, then grinding through a title rep role he will freely admit was not the right fit, before finding his footing as a loan originator right as the world was shutting down in 2020. Since going out on his own, he's grown steadily every single year, staying focused on relationships, building a team that runs without him in the way, and staying curious about how to do the job better. Evan Robinson, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thanks for having me, Connor. To be described as a freelance writer feels like a stretch, but it's probably like the coolest that I'll ever feel. So thanks for that.
Hey, I love that, man. Well, I love the way that you sort of, that was one detail that really stood out to me when we talked before that was really unique among many, but that was one that really stood out because I don't hear that as a way many people get started in the industry, kind of writing bios for realtors because nobody else wanted to do it. And I know you were a literature major, you turned loan officer, and that's not necessarily the most common path, but I don't think anyone's path into this business is all that traditional. But what made you think mortgage was somewhere you could, build a career?
Yeah, I feel like we have this thing in our industry where almost everybody says like, I never grew up wanting to be a loan officer. That's like a thing you hear a million times in our industry, which is totally true for me too. You don't even like know about it until you kind of find your way into it. And I worked at an internet blog before I moved to Portland. So I was doing like advertising and PR for this thing called Cheeseburger, which was like one of the original like cat meme websites. So I had a real weird job before that. And so that was how I kind of started doing like little writing jobs, and just stumbled into
Well, that just got a lot more interesting, Evan.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the first time. It was a fun job. We did this thing where like when Uber first came out, we teamed up with the ASPCA and we took cats, got like 20 or 30 foster cats, put them in a little like enclosure thing into 20 Ubers, and then those Ubers were in the city and you could like try to get them to come to your office, and you would get like a kitten Uber that would come in and let you play with the cats, and then you could adopt them. And it was like this whole PR stunt that I did with this company. So it was an interesting time.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So from that to mortgage.
So how did you stumble into like writing bios for realtors though? Like how did that come around?
Yeah, I was just trying to like lean into any kind of writing position that I could. And my partner at the time, she's been in real estate for a long time. So like I kind of just started meeting realtors, and this was in 2015 or something like that. So this was during the era where like getting a bio was a very like important thing, or like a big thing for realtors. Like everybody had to have a bio. So I did one or two, and then like another person in an office was like, oh, I've just had like this dude write my bio. And so I just ended up stacking up all these meetings, and it was weird. Like I would go talk to somebody and kind of interview them and then churn out, like a 1-page bio that they could use. Like that's such a relic now. Like nobody would ever do that. If you needed a bio, you would just probably chat GPT it or something. But
right,
yeah, it was kind of a one-off that turned into a bunch of things. And like that was really how I found my the back door into real estate and learn more about it. It was, to answer your actual question, it was a while until I decided I would get into mortgage. Like I kind of had to go from that to doing this title position that I did, which I just was a bad fit for like the 9-to-5 role and kind of didn't know what I was doing. And like, I don't know, it just was a bad fit for me. And then I had a friend who was a loan officer who hired me on kind of as her junior with another teammate. And that was kind of how I found my way into the industry. And the rest was how a lot of us do it, which is learn as you go and by the seat of your pants. And eventually you realize like, oh, I can actually do this.
Yeah. And so you go out on your own the week before COVID shuts down the United States in 2020. Like, what were those first few weeks as a commission only loan officer? What was that like? And if you don't mind sharing sort of your Instacart story as well, because I'd love people to hear that one.
Yeah, it was terrifying. I thought it was over for sure. Because remember back then, you kind of didn't know what was happening, and then it was just like I feel like it was like I was sitting like maybe at a bar one day, and like I heard the staff being like, "I think we got to close tomorrow," and then I was like, "What?" And then next day, like everything shut down for 3 years or whatever, 2 years or whatever it was, and I was literally like the week before that had left. My team and I decided to go solo, so I had no idea that that was about to happen. So I thought my days were numbered, and for the first few weeks, kind of in the tumult of everything being shut down, like I was just trying to figure out how to make money. And I started doing Instacart, like grocery delivery service thing to like be like doing something to put money in my bank account so that, just in case, like I didn't want to, it was like kind of a shit plan. So I did that for a couple of weeks, and my like boneheaded idea, because this was a 2020. I guess I was the youthful age of 34 or whatever it was. I was like, oh, a good idea for me would be to take business cards and stick them into toilet paper rolls and like say, hey, I'm a loan officer too, because toilet paper was like really scarce. So like if you could get your hands on an extra couple of rolls of toilet paper,
Yeah.
you were stoked. So I don't know. I think maybe one time a lady reached out to me and was like, that was a really cute idea. Like, do you mind if my son like does something similar for his clients or something like that? But I certainly never got a client out.
Yeah, well, I think we all had a lot of, well, crazy ideas back then. I was checking my mail with a pair of tongs just so I wouldn't have to touch the envelopes, and different weird things like that. It was this kind of strange freak out moment. I remember talking with some of my loan officer friends at the time, because November and December of 2019 and even January of 2020, were better months than they had had previously. And I remember just talking with some of them in, late February, early March, and going, thank goodness for a strong November, holiday and start to the year, because who knows what's going to happen next. This thing might just shut us all down for a long time. And then all of a sudden, the script flipped and we were off to the races. So it was just,
Yeah,
I don't know, but in those first month or so, it was nobody knew what the hell was going to happen
right. And
next.
that
So
was
it
the
was
thing, is
really
it didn't
interesting.
last very long. Like I think I did that for 3 weeks maybe. And then, the switch just flipped and suddenly I was busier than I could have ever imagined I would ever be. And I was just trying to
Yeah.
keep up. And a lot of it was that the experienced folks in the industry were inundated with their refi pipeline and all their past, that stuff. And so they couldn't get a hold of people. And so I got a lot of realtors that were like, I just can't get a hold of a loan officer. Like, are you able to talk to a client? And I was like, of course, and so that was,
Yeah. Yeah,
just
we've had a few guests on the podcast that got their start right around the same time, and very
mm,
similar story, getting into the business fresh at that time really was an advantage,
mhm.
especially if you had been junioring or assisting other originators somewhere else. So you had some knowledge and just some ability to structure files and you weren't totally green. Because, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a demand, and it was a great opportunity to just kind of slide in and fill a gap that maybe had been created by someone else.
It was like when people would say, fog a mirror, get a loan back in COVID, or not COVID, back in the '08 crisis. It
Right.
was like, fog a mirror, do a loan. Like, are you licensed? Can you do this? Like,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
you're in. Like, and rates, it's like, how do you feel about a 2.875 rate? People are like, sweet. It was just such a different world to be born into this industry.
Right. So as we got to know each other, we talked a little bit, and one thing that you shared that was sort of a blessing and a curse, or maybe a good and a bad idea at the same time, was buying leads. How do you hold both things to be true, that it was maybe the worst decision but also a very helpful one? How do you hold those true at the same time, and what did going through that process actually teach you? Because I know a lot of people that they'll go and they'll buy the Zillow leads, they'll do the co-marketing thing. Like what was your experience with?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was at Fairway, which I'm not. I haven't. I came to CMG in 2022. It's awesome here, but there they for a little while they had this like lead gen in-house thing, and you could sign up for it and pay a little bit and get kind of like on a Zillow type lead drip thing, So it wasn't quite Zillow, but it was the same thing. And it was terrible because you got a lot of like real crazy situations or people that were deeply unserious about buying a house, or that like they called you but they were also mad at you, like kind of that scenario. So it was just hard in the way that cold calling or lead gen is. But it was great because I got to, like I think the most important thing when you're new is getting at bats, and it's the hardest thing to get, outside of lead gen. And also the fact that I was paying for it, just having the skin in the game made it a lot more. I was so much more invested into it. I mean, and like also because like, yeah, hey, I needed to get a deal. I was invested for that, but paying for it made a huge difference. So I think that's what it is. Like the Zillow, I think the paying for Zillow leads is like going away too. I think they're shifting all the way to like just the premier Zillow Flex thing or whatever it's called. And that's just to me now not worth it. I do work with a big team that gets a lot of leads through that, and so I kind of work with this team's newer realtors to help them kind of wade through these leads, and just it's helpful that I have that experience in my past to be like, hey, this is gonna suck and it's gonna be hard, but like eventually you're going to get a client that's amazing, and like that person is going to be one of the first people that then refers you more people, and like you're sort of building this foundation. You're learning how to navigate all the different kinds of people that you're going to come across. Like it's just invaluable, even though it kind of sucks at the time.
Well, but I think you make a great point about it just being all gave you an opportunity to get a lot of reps in,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
take a lot of swings, learn scripting, overcome objections, the different things that are going to get thrown your way, know when to say, when to identify a bad lead early, and know how to, move on with compassion and things like that, so that, you can protect your time at the same time. And kind of on the same, I guess I'm trying to segue into kind of the next question here, which is, I know a lot of loan officers I talk to, they want to grow, but the biggest struggle is letting go of things and like getting out of their files. And you even described yourself as a liability when you're like in your own email thread. When did you realize that staying in the process was part of what was holding you back?
I mean, I feel like I knew it right away, but you can't, obviously in the beginning you have to do everything yourself. Not only like that's invaluable training as well, because obviously you can't do the job without knowing how all the processes, how all the pieces work. But when I was on like the team, they had an LOA and an assistant, and so I kind of saw what it was like to have an assistant and somebody who was truly a professional and like really organized and had all those traits that a good assistant has in order to. Will this be a problem if I have to? Can you cut this?
No, we're getting a glimpse into the life of a loan officer right now, everybody.
But it's going to be this like Teams thing is going to continue to
Pinging you?
ding, and like to be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure how to like mute an individual thing. There it is. Okay, cool. So I realized, when did I realize that I was a liability? I think like, yeah, so seeing that really organized person who was like really good at being, checking all the boxes and keeping things moving forward, and really would just take an asset to the client because they were organized. Like that's just not the way my brain works. I kind of classic loan officer versus loan officer assistant division where my brain is scattered and I'm doing a million things and I'm good at, a very limited number of things. But the things that I'm good at are vital to make the whole system work because I'm bringing in more people. Like I realized pretty quickly that was a problem, because if I was doing 5 loans a month and trying to manage all the conditions and everything, like I was just, it's too slow. And then I think everybody has this experience where you're like, I got 5 loans in, and then I'm spending 7 days in a row in the loan. Now my business sucks for the next month because I got no more deals coming in because I would just doing that, and hitting that ceiling. And I think you also, when you get to that point, you kind of beat up on yourself because you're like, well, I should be able to do all this. And like, I don't really need to have an assistant until I can like make this run. And then I'll be ready. But the reality is that like, you kind of have to get the assistant before you're ready so that you can continue to do what you do well and grow. And then just learn how to work really well with that person so that they can help you. And, you can kind of team up that way.
Yeah, you find that as common among, higher producers as they anticipate the need, they fill the need before they really need it. And then it's never like this setback moment of, I wish I had done this sooner because now I'm bottlenecked and things are a little out of my control and I really now have to work backwards. So I think that's a great call out about just sort of anticipating that need ahead of time and realizing, okay, I need to fill this position so that I can continue operating in my highest and best use kind of scenario. And you have an LOA. You started introducing them earlier on in the client relationship, and I've talked with some originators that kind of wait a little while, and it causes some problems. You said this was kind of a real shift for you when you started to make that the standard operating procedure. What was the change that you observed, and why do you think other loan officers maybe wait longer to do that or resist that?
I think we're all a control freaks or whatever you want to call it to some extent. Like we're all very invested in managing everything from start to finish in one way or another. So it's hard to let go of that control. Like you want to feel like somebody's getting this level that you want to provide to them. And I think we also tend to think that other people are going to feel passed off and they don't like that. And I think that there's a danger of that too, because you don't want someone to feel like that. Like, that you want them to feel like I'm available to you. I'm your guy. Reach out to me. Like I'm here to help. And so I think it was just about making sure that people didn't feel that way, because I know that the more I can get Todd in at the beginning, because he's the pro at contract to close, the better it is for everybody, for him, for me, for the client. And so it's just about saying like, this is going to be in your best interest. And I know that. So I need to figure out how to make you feel comfortable, Todd. So I just, as soon as I do the initial call, send him the pre-approval, and like send him the application, I pull Todd in and I just let people know, like, this is my assistant. He's awesome. You'll do, like he'll help from here on out. He'll reach out. He's a contact. I'm still here every step of the way, and you can always reach out to me. Like I'm your guy after hours or on the weekends. Like, I'm still on point. And Todd is just the brains of the operation. And I've never had anybody have a problem with that. And like Todd also knows the expectation of where he's going to fit in. And, he knows how to make people feel at ease as well. And he's definitely like the opposite of me personality wise, where I will talk forever. And like, you can see that, like, I'm just long-winded and I'll get into the weeds. He's like a dad texter, like where his emails are like four words, at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah. You're like, are you mad at me? Like, so I was like, are people gonna be like put off by that? But he's a great dude. He's very like, able to walk through things with people and stuff like that. So but I didn't want to like say like, hey Todd, don't email the way that you email. So I just kind of like let him be him. I introduce him, and lo and behold, like people love it and they're totally fine with him and they feel supported. And like, so I like, maybe to answer your question, like you just got to get out of your own head and understand that you're doing the client a service by bringing in this other person who's going to be handling the contract to close part as soon as possible, because then they just have a better idea. Like that's what we were running into, was like, if I brought him in a little bit later down the road, he just wasn't up to speed as much as he could be with the file and the people. And so he had to ask a bunch of extra questions, and maybe it made things take longer and just created a log jam, or, then the client started feeling like, why are you asking me for all this stuff now? Like, so that was the problem that we identified, and we talk all the time. And so we're like, hey, what if you come in right at the beginning, and lo and behold, like that fixed the problem. And I also was like, I did a coaching thing last year, and I was with a dude who was really cool, who turned out to be like a $300 million a year producer. Like he like dropped that at the end of our conversation, like holy shit. But he was like, my goal is to be on no email threads at all. And so I asked my assistant to just remove me from everything unless I'm needed 100%. So
Mhm.
like that was where it kind of like clicked for me. It was like, if you're on every single email, you're going to get your loan officer like senses of like, oh, I need to meddle. And if you're not, then you don't. And then
Right.
if your team knows when you need to be involved, like if you need to make a difficult phone call or talk to someone, and they pull you in, and then you come save the day or whatever. And everybody's roles are defined, and it makes more sense. Whereas if like I would do this all the time, where I would be watching an email thread and like in my head about it, and I meddle in the middle of it, and Todd and my processor Tiffany are like, "Dude, get out of here," you know. So like you have to not do that because they don't need you. These guys have been doing it longer than I have.
Well, I think it's great that you have team members that will say that to you, that will kind of put you in your place and or just say, "Hey, we've got it handled and, we don't need you in the middle of this. You're making things worse, bro." But I
Yeah.
also love that you and Todd are having like this standing meeting once a week where you guys get together for 10, 15 minutes, kind of talk about what's working, what's not working,
Mhm.
what went sideways in the last week. I think it's a great habit. How did that get started? Like just the routine of that, and then what has that changed about the way you operate?
Yeah, this was another coaching thing. I coached with Cindy Ertman last year, and it was, game changer both for her individual coaching and like the group coaching that you do when you sign up for her program. But she just put me onto the idea of like connect with your team weekly, or even, I think maybe it was even daily, which for every other day or something, to keep refining your process and talk about what's working and what's not, and listen to each other, and like we just started doing like, hey, let's connect twice a week, and one of those like, we'll do pipe review and everything, and then also let's review what got screwed up, what really well, how we can improve. What did I do that pissed you off, like what, or vice versa. And just having that, it's like accountability, it's a line of communication, it's me listening to him, because like I said, Todd's been doing this for 25 years. He really knows that stuff. And I'm better at certain things. And like, I think as the loan officer, the leader of a team, you think of yourself as sort of the leader. But like, to me, leading is basically shutting up as much as possible and trying to listen to everybody else and adjust as needed. And so like, those conversations have been absolutely invaluable for growing over the last couple of years and getting us to the point where I think we can continue to grow, because we just talk about shit and then implement it, and it's easy.
Yeah, how about that? So now you've described kind of the goal really not just being about building your volume and going after big production numbers, but also just having a self-sustaining business. And that comes through in some of what we've already talked about. At what point do you think you'll feel like you've got enough? And how do you know you've gotten there?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I almost like have the sense that I'm close, but at the same time, a big um, piece of the fulfillment that I get out of our industry is continuing to grow and streamline, not grow, but like making it better, like making it feel like if you work with me, your experience as a client or a realtor or whatever is really nice and pleasant, and you feel like I helped you out and I was useful to you. And like, and I think because when you start, your first few loans are such chaos. Like I feel so bad for my parents who I had, I did like one of my first loans was theirs, and they were like, what is happening, to now where like, you're really focused on making people feel, taken care of, and like this was frictionless and all that kind of stuff because it's clunky. So like, I don't know that ever ends. I think you're always trying to tinker with that and make it better and better and better. I do feel like doing more and more volume just for the sake of beating your own past year isn't really what I want to get stuck in, because you can fall into the trap of being not present with your family and stuff like that. And like that is a real danger. And it's something that when I was newer in the business, people told me, and I was like, whatever, dude, like I'm just trying to do, $1 million a month or whatever. And then you get more successful and you see it, like you really, if you're good at this job, it's because you never stop, and you need to figure out how to like stop to some extent. So like trending close to 50 this year, and like maybe that's good enough, if we can get like hiring another person, like just getting this thing running real smoothly and as much as is possible in our industry, and maybe we'll reassess. And I think like I want to start branching into other stuff, like doing more investment and focusing more on like teammates and everything, like kind of other components of the industry that also like fills my cup. And I think if you work in real estate, whether it's mortgage or real estate, you probably should be, practicing what you preach. So maybe enough in this bucket, and then all that means is I start branching out into something else and become a baby in a new version again.
Yeah. Well, I love the you're spot on about just how this industry can be so demanding on you that it can really start to take you away from the other things in life that really matter, and your family and the people that you're close to. And I know your wife is in real estate, and you guys, I mean, we could do probably a whole long conversation about how, your story there, but what is life like with somebody who's in real estate and you're on the mortgage side? Like, how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great, honestly, because like we understand each other. It's pretty cool to go home. I mean, not that, you want to be like griping to each other all the time about things, but like her frustrations, I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about, and vice versa. Or when you get a big win, or also just like, I mean, my wife is so much smarter than me, and she's like creative, and she's just, she is such an incredible like sounding board and accountability partner. So like if I'm stuck, I can ask her like, hey, what do you think? And she knows the industry, and so we can really help each other a lot, and vice versa. Like I can help her with the stuff that I'm good at, because that's some of the stuff that she struggles with. We're kind of like opposites. Like Emma would make a really great like ops. She is basically an ops manager for the team that she works with. So she, her and her business partner run a big team. I also work with them. So like I'm their lender, and it's probably 10 realtors in New Orleans. So like, half my business is in Louisiana. But Emma is, running all those working with all those teammates. And it's a lot of like talking to people, and like that stretches her comfort zone, I think, sometimes. And but yeah, it's nice to be able to talk about it together. But it also like it's double edged, right? Because you can like get too caught up in like talking about real estate all the damn time, and you want to get away from it sometimes.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think like I don't think it's caused any like friction or anything. It's really been a nice, like I see why like a lot of people will work with their family and stuff and bring them onto their team, because you're there for those people, and like you can work well together if you can figure it out.
Yeah. So, and I think that's wonderful, man. I want to end on this. If you could go back and just sort of sit across from yourself at the moment that you're, Instacart shopping, stuffing business cards, and, doing all of that, what is the one thing that you would tell that version of yourself that you had to learn the hard way?
I mean, this sounds pretty cliche, but like it's probably honestly to just keep going, because this business is so hard on your psyche. Anything is, I guess. Anything that's hard. But you go through a lot of times where you feel like a fraud, or like you're not good enough, or like there's, like, I mean, I always make the joke, like I basically always feel like I'll never get another deal again, like that's kind of like, I think we all have that mentality. And when you're new, that is really hard. And, I think I spent a lot of time just really doubting myself, and basically like trying to think of like, well, what am I going to do when this like doesn't work anymore? Because everyone figures out that I'm a literature major that used to stuff business cards into toilet paper rolls. And and like that probably slowed me down. So if you can figure out how to just understand that success exists in the chaos, like if it's chaotic and crazy, it probably means you're doing the right stuff. And you just gotta like accept that some version of that chaos never really goes away as long as you're pushing yourself. Then you can just get there more quickly because it's a better mindset to be in, and it just keeps you from feeling the scarcity of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that advice, man. I feel like the chaos the goal really is to start shedding chaos along the
Yeah.
way, and and giving those parts to others. But as that happens, you stay busy, but so you're always chaotic, quote unquote, but in the things that you love doing the most.
Yes.
And I think when we talk about self-sustaining business and kind of getting to those like nirvana like places in the business, that's really what we're describing is give me the thing I love doing the most and just give me a lot of it. Because I don't mind that chaos, but you start throwing me into the things I hate doing, and it's really going to start pissing me off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I definitely don't think you should strive for chaos. Like you're right. The
Yeah.
goal is to mitigate chaos and shed it off. And yeah, that's another thing that I think I would think about a lot is like as quickly as possible, understand what your strength is and figure out how to lean into it, and then get other people to help you to do the other stuff and just like treat them really well and do everything you can. Like, I would don't tell Todd this, but I would just pay that person all the money in the world so that I could just keep doing the two things that I'm actually good at that get us more business, and then we'll just keep growing. Like that's kind of the mindset that is hard to have at first because you're trying to hold on to everything. But you're just it seems like it's probably pretty unlikely that you're good at everything.
Right.
And if you
Yeah,
are, you're
totally.
not listening to me talk about this shit. You've already got it figured out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Evan, man, I really appreciate you, joining the lowdown, being on the show, kind of sharing your perspective on things, and really excited to see where things go for you. Clearly, you're on a great path, and good things are happening. And I love the way that you are sort of seeing the future and the different chess moves you need to make next. So, best of luck to you, and thanks for being on the show.
Cheers, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.